We talk a lot about metros on this channel, from Paris to Tokyo to Istanbul. But would you guess that one of the world's most interesting metros is in a city of just around 250,000 people? That's not big. As it turns out though, the Swiss city of Lausanne has not one, but two metro lines. Well, at least on paper. We'll talk about that shortly. Nonetheless, let's look at one of the smallest, automatedest, rubber-tiredest, platform screen door havingest little metros in the world, the Lazan Metro. A special thanks to Adrien and Kurt for their on-the-ground footage from Lausanne featured in this video. As you might know, Switzerland has a crazy amount of trains, and they are really good, but what Switzerland somewhat oddly does not have is a lot of metros. In fact, it has just one, and it's weird and it's in Lausanne, which is within the general orbit of Geneva if you're curious. The Lausanne Metro is a two-line affair, and remember, this city isn't Tokyo, so the network doesn't extend to the moon and back. It's just around 14 kilometers long. But in these 14, or more specifically 13.7 kilometers, there are 28 different stations. As I mentioned before, the system has two lines, but M1, which is well over half the length of the entire system, and in the tradition of the Brisbane Metro, the Birmingham Metro, and Capital Metro in Austin, Texas, it really shouldn't be called a metro. For one, much of the line is single track, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that a metro can't have single track on it, but it probably shouldn't be 50% single track. Of course, the reason for this is good Swiss engineering. Organization before electronics before concrete and all. And frequencies are generally good, at around every 10 minutes or so. That being said, despite the high platforms, the line has road crossings and tracks running right next to streets, without much protection at all. So it's just not very metro-like. And it's generally not claimed that the system is. All the documentation I've seen suggests that M1 is light rail. I just find it funny that it's part of a quote-unquote metro system. Line M2, though, is an entirely different beast. Like many hilly cities, Lausanne previously had a funicular system running through the middle of it, from the main train station down to the lakeshore. Eventually, this funicular was converted to a rack railway and got the name Metro, which reminds me a lot of the Lyon Metro's Line C, a metro rack railway hybrid that I covered in a previous video. But Lausanne took it even further when in the 2000s it turned it into the most metro-like metro Lausanne had seen yet, with frequent service and no cables or rack tracks. Even more interesting, this line would use trains similar to ones seen in Paris and Santiago. No, not those trains, yes, rubber-tired trains. Despite being built in the 2000s, the Lausanne Metro adopted trains really similar to the MP89 trains in Paris or the NS93 in Santiago, making it one of those few cities to use the Paris-derived rubber tire metro tech. But in this case, it was basically a requirement. The line is incredibly steep. Remember, this was an old funicular, so the track climbs grades of up to 12%, and this is all while operating a frequent every 3-minute metro-style service, albeit mostly below ground in tunnels. The grades overall are so steep that to avoid having to make them even steeper between stations, the stations themselves are even on grades. Lausanne Station, the main national railway station of the city, looks like this. Now, you might think that this is a cute tourist attraction for the many mountain and chocolate-obsessed visitors Switzerland sees every year, but this really is mass transit, and the M2 line moved around 70,000 people a day in 2013, beating expectations as many small metro lines seem to. That's similar in numbers to the Miami Metro rail system, which uses much larger trains but at a much lower frequency, and is in a city many times the size of Lausanne. 70,000 a day is actually just very respectable given the line is less than 6 kilometers long. What other metro lines out there does it beat? Let me know in the comments. This hasn't come without its issues though, because train frequencies across the whole line are limited somewhat by the reuse of old tunnel segments from the funicular, and a single track section along the line in one such tunnel, which allows only one train going in one direction at a time. To fix this, the line is being upgraded with a new section under Lausanne's main train station that will be better located and double-tracked. More trains will also operate, bringing frequency to levels better than every 3 minutes, in a city of just a couple 100,000 people. I think the lesson here is that even a small city can justify a metro on the right corridor: high ridership, difficult geography, and short overall length. And M2 is not some antiquated system of the past. Despite being a small system, M2 with its 14 stations is fully automated and features platform screen doors at every station, as well as a very Paris-esque internal seating arrangement on the trains. This is really a masterclass in adopting the best practices from much more established transit systems to better a city that just isn't all that big. This isn't suggesting that every transit line should be a metro. That clearly doesn't make sense cost or benefit-wise. But it does show that the idea that a city of any significant size could be too small for a metro isn't necessarily true, and that if you provide a great transit service, people will use it. Thanks for watching.